Hey, what's up everybody? This is Will on Willpower Astrology, talking about Mercury retrograde this July in the signs of Leo and Cancer. So really quick, Mercury retrograde is in essence, we are in the northern hemisphere watching the planets go across the sky from east to west in the southern sky. Generally the planets are going like this, and then every once in a while, because of the relative orbits of the planets, it seems like the planet comes and then it slows down and goes backwards, and then it goes back forwards again. So what does this mean for Mercury? So Mercury is the planet of intellect and communication and talking and exchange and like communication, you know, words, blah, blah, blah. It's how we relate to each other, how we communicate, all these kinds of things. It also has to do with like technology and, you know, movement, commerce. There's all these sorts of things at play within Mercury retrograde. So when Mercury goes retrograde, these thought processes that are generally going forward, right? They're going forward. These processes kind of back up and they slow down, and there's kind of like a wrench in the works, as it were. So the traditional wisdom for Mercury retrograde is not to sign contracts, not to make long-lasting decisions, you know what I mean? To kind of be on the lookout for things to kind of break down. So within the signs of Leo and Cancer, first of all, the retrograde is from July 7th to July 31st. We entered the shadow zone, so that first pass through that Mercury makes up to 4 degrees of Leo, we entered that 23 degrees of Cancer on June 20th. So June 20th, we started this first pass of this transit. And then on the week leading up to July 7th, the first week of July, Mercury started slowing down, so that communication started kind of coming to a halt. And then on July 7th, it backed up, stationed retrograde, and now we're in the period where it's backing up like this. And then once July 31st hits, we're going to station direct again, and we're going to go back over this thing. So this place that Mercury passes over 3 times becomes a focus of reevaluation. The retrograde, it makes us kind of like comb over all the details. We have to really go over, in this sense, where that 4 degrees of Leo to 23 degrees of Cancer lies in our chart. So the signs of Leo has to do, Leo's the heart. Leo's all about your pleasure and what makes you happy, and what, you know, what you strongly connect your pride to, and all this kind of thing. So it's heart level, heart passion, heart chakra, all this kind of stuff. So a couple years ago, the Mercury retrograde happened in Leo, and I wrote a blog post kind of summing it up as, are we having fun yet? You know what I mean? So at the beginning of this retrograde, we're kind of struggling with, is my heart really in what I'm doing, you know? And then as it continues on through the sign of Cancer, it moves more internal, more deeper. So Cancer is kind of the seat of the soul. It's like the touchstone of where our identity begins. We're born, we have a body, but then we individuate and we become our own person. And that's kind of what Cancer is when we start to realize that we have our own thoughts and feelings, and it comes from deep within. It's like the fountain of youth, right? So this whole Mercury retrograde, we're reevaluating these mental Mercury processes through this heart level Leo and this gut level Cancer kind of way. So we're thinking very emotionally during this time, and kind of the questions that are coming up. Am I having fun? Do I feel fulfilled by this? But then later, am I being true to what I feel? Am I honoring the feelings that are coming up? Am I, you know, trusting my gut, as it were? So our emotions this time could be running very hot. They could be running very deep. They kind of overpowers our thought processes a little bit. We think very much, instead of thinking up here, we think viscerally, coming from down here. And sometimes that emotionality can really kind of twist our communication. People are getting a message that we weren't intending to give because of the force of our emotions. You know what I mean? We just got to be careful on how we're saying things and like what we're doing in that regard. So some of the big elements of this Mercury retrograde to me are the opposition to Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. So Saturn is our kind of time lord, trials and tests, and we got to learn our lessons from Saturn. And then Pluto is kind of giving long-term generational changes. So both of those things in the sign of Saturn, which has to do with public life and kind of public image and kind of the role we take out there in larger society. things are kind of ramping up in scariness. So this full moon in Capricorn the other day is highlighting a lot of tensions that are going on. Rhetoric is really ramping up, and tensions are running high. Like we're shining a light on what we need to do in terms of our responsibilities and all this kind of thing. So what I wrote down here is the world is changing. Are we ready to change? Are we ready for it to be a different kind of world than we are now? Because Saturn is like longevity and Pluto is changes. So these changes opposite the North Node in Cancer have these long-lasting effects. So are we ready for the changes that are coming our way? And we've got to be ready to meet any kind of conflict. We've got to be ready to meet ideological conflict. We're gonna have to be ready to, like, I don't know what, meet some kind of conflict, but these tensions are growing. So the other thing about this is that I already mentioned, it's the opposition to the South Node and all this stuff in Capricorn. The North Node over here in Cancer, this Mercury retrograde backs up to that North Node. So along with the solar eclipse that we had with the new moon in Cancer and kind of like the overall effect of this summer being kind of this place and time that we're going to look back on and go, remember when everything started? Remember when everything sparked in that summer of 2019? All of these things that are going on are going to have long-term implications. So right now, this Mercury retrograde is highlighting kind of the crisis, the changes, the thing that's calling our attention so that we make these eclipse changes. Right now, Mercury retrograde is going, are you doing it? Are you getting ready? Are you making the changes? Are you getting ready for what is to come? Kind of the whole thing that I feel about this Mercury retrograde in general, and I've had some kind of stark events that have put it into perspective for me, is shorthand, this whole Mercury retrograde, the catchphrase is get your house in order. So whatever that means, if it means, you know, you need to go clean your dirty ass room, go clean your dirty ass room. If that means you need to get out of debt, then do it. If that means that you need to start saving money, I don't know what it means. It means get your house in order. Cancer is all about security. Security is a fundamental kind of key word of Cancer. And I think about this like the little crabs skittering around on the beach. When the tide comes in and there's waves and there's all this crashing, the little crab is getting knocked around and tries to find a little like place to like find its little nook and grab onto things and make sure that it's not getting knocked around in the tide. So with all this stuff going on in Cancer, we need to have our security set up now. So get your house in order, whether that's your physical house, like the crab carrying the shell on your back, whether that's some kind of internal place where I feel comfortable listening to like my inner voice that comes up, my intuition, because Cancer is directly linked to the way that we process our own feelings and emotions and the way that we think about ourselves. So get your house in order. I think that this North Node of Cancer, sparking off this eclipse, sparking off this Mercury retrograde, sparking off all this stuff, even if this month is not necessarily knocking you really hard right now, you need to be ready for things that come up later. So get yourself ready. Don't wait until later to pay off that thing or to do that moment or, you know, to even take your vacation or to do whatever is that thing, because later you might not have the chance. And later, if you don't start preparing now, you might not be prepared for it later. You know what I'm saying? So get ready for it. We don't know what it's going to be, but with this North Node in Cancer, you know, like there is kind of this economic downturn that is kind of scheduled to be happening in the next couple of years. So get your house in order. Start getting ready now. Use the crisis of this time and the kind of general like, oh my God, what is this? To get yourself driven towards, you know, continuing forward with your goals. And so I was talking with a friend recently, and it's kind of this idea that we have to make everything personal. It's things out there that are happening to other people, like kids in cages at the border. We can't think of that as something that is happening to those people over there. It's happening to us. It's happening to our people. We have to feel these things as if they are happening to us. We have to feel other people's feelings as if we can feel what they feel. You know what I mean? We have to reach deep down and find a personal place where we have a stake of empathy and caring and nurturing for other people so that we can embody this Cancer energy. And that is your Mercury retrograde in Leo and Cancer.